Due to technical issues, this was supposed to be a video, but it is a podcast. Not only that, but I have had to re-record some of my lines because of a different technical issues. This video is just full of technical issues. Sorry about that, but I hope you enjoy nonetheless. Welcome to Fjook Enterprise. I'm your host Fjook, and with me is fellow Pokemon enthusiast
Anthony.
I already know this due to you having told me before, but what is your history with the Pokemon franchise?
So I was heavily introduced to it when I was a little child with the old black and white Game Boy, and I had blue and red. And then I got a first edition yellow. I got gold, and then went on a long hiatus. The next game I would play would be Pokemon X, and I bought that, I think, in 2016. And then after playing that, I played every game right up until Ultra Sun. Played on Pokemon Showdown online. I've played Pokemon Go. And I think for the Game Boy, I played the Pokemon trading card game.
You don't have anything older than X?
Oh yes, that's right. I also did end up getting Black and White too. Uh, after I beat Alpha Sapphire.
I have a very similar history to you. I played Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, followed by Gold and Silver. I then played a few fan games, which got me to buy Pokemon White and Go. I wouldn't have bought either of those games if I hadn't played the fan games.
Well, I only bought X and a new 3DS because I was bored in Toronto. There was no other reason for me to buy it.
Oh,
And it got me hooked.
I also got Pokemon Conquest. Have you played that one?
I haven't played that one.
You ever play Final Fantasy Tactics?
Turn-based tile.
Yeah. What do you think of the Pokemon video game storylines?
I just watched a YouTube video on this, and they generally tend to be fairly weak. Um, it's the story of someone who's like between 9 and 15 years old going out on their first adventure. They're definitely wailing on every trainer that they see until they become the best, and they're beating adults along the way.
Why is the storyline so weak in your opinion?
Usually the protagonist isn't very developed. Even red in in Sun and other games, when you challenge him, literally says nothing. Blue is seen as cocky, and he definitely loses some of his cockiness after losing to Red in the original series. But although he's toned it down, he still remains overconfident about his skills.
Couldn't you say that any RPG characters are not well developed, except Final Fantasy?
Well, no, usually, like over a 60-hour campaign, you get their backstory, you get a bit of their history, you get to understand why they're important to this world. In Pokemon, this isn't the case.
So, how would you make Pokemon protagonists more developed characters then?
I think their issue is usually with the pacing of the game. Usually, the introduction, what you need to do, the mechanics of the world take up a huge amount of the early game. And once you've played one Pokemon game, you know how to play all the Pokemon games. And you could cut out this fluff or introduction, and it would leave you a huge room to develop, more characters.
Do you think it would be a benefit to Pokemon games if the protagonist was like 17 or 18?
That would be interesting, and I think for at least the North American audience, I think that would make more sense, as it's usually, when you once you've graduated from high school, where you go into the open world and start making your own decisions.
So, do you know Canadian regions well enough to make a Pokemon region out of a Canadian region?
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial to use the season system in the Black and White 2 series, because I think that would definitely be applicable to a Canadian Pokemon game.
Are you saying no matter where the game was set, that it should have seasons if it's a Canadian Pokemon game?
Well, I would say yes. It obviously is to a lesser extent if you're in British Columbia, in certain parts of British Columbia. But yes, we get a lot of snow, we get a lot of rain, and we get a lot of stuff in the middle. We definitely do have one growing season.
Each Pokemon game seems to be focused around what the professor is researching. So you have, for example, in Red, Blue, and Gold, it's just filling the Pokedex. That's all the game's on. Main feature of the game. In Pokemon Gold and Silver, it's the baby Pokemon and breeding. Not a huge thing, but it's there. As well as breeding. With breeding, you get shinies. Which explains the which is why the Red Gyarados is there. And then you have the one where the professor is researching Z-moves, and then you have the one where the professor is researching Mega Evolutions. Since they've introduced regional variants, if I did a Pokemon game, the professor. If I did a Pokemon game, it would be where the professor is researching Pokemon variants, and I would set in Alberta due to all the different various terrains Alberta has, and due to the fact that there are a lot of animals that live in Alberta that live in those various terrains, which means I could have different variations of the same species, even more than Sun and Moon or Sword and Shield.
I think the other thing that Alberta would definitely have going for it is fossil Pokemon, considering that Alberta has one of the greatest collections of dinosaur bones.
Also, also similar to Sun and Moon, where my Pokedex would be limited to just the regional Pokemon, no national dex, but have the ability to bring Pokemon from other regions over.
Yeah, see, for me, I like a limited Pokedex when you're looking at it, that only the ones that are in that region are listed. But I definitely do like the ability to transfer older mods into my games and not be limited as to which ones I can have in the game.
Have we ever seen a ghost Pokemon like the one in Red? Malware's Ghost is literally the ghost of Malware. It's not a Ghastly, Haunter, or Gengar. We have never seen that elsewhere, have we?
That was the first and only time that I'm aware of.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna actually write some of my ideas down, and we can discuss, and I can discuss them when actually,
Yeah,
because I
cool, cool.
thank you for hanging out with me and talking Pokemon.
Oh, I love it. I love talking about Pokemon anytime.